In this video, we'll cover how to turn on the new functionality for syncing deposits from Mothernode to QuickBooks Desktop, and then the changes in the workflow when setting up a deposit and then syncing it to QuickBooks, and then what happens at the tail end of the process once the invoice is generated and synced over to QuickBooks as well. So first of all, as you can see, I'm in the admin function in Mothernode. I've gone to the API settings and selected my QuickBooks Web Connector settings, and we've added an option to turn the function on. So all you have to do is flip this toggle, use journal entry for deposits, just flip it on, and then in the lower right of the screen, click Save to save that change, and that will change the workflow with respect to deposits in the system. It doesn't change anything else. It won't alter the way that you process quotes and process quotes into orders, fulfill the orders, move orders into production, ship orders, create invoices, and all of that. It won't affect any of that at all. The new deposit sync functionality begins in the quote or order when you have created a deposit invoice and then received payment. And so we'll pick it up from that point. In this example, I have a quote. Again, it could be an order, but either way, I've created the deposit invoice, I've sent it to the customer, and they can pay it electronically or send a check, so it can be entered manually. So either way, the process hasn't changed at all to this point where you've sent the deposit out and received payment. None of that has changed. The new functionality really kicks in once the payment for the deposit is received, and now you'll see in this sample quote under deposit invoices, or if it's the order, you'll see it in the invoicing tab, you'll see this option called Send Deposit to QuickBooks. And just like anything else with respect to sync processes in the system, you'll click this and then you'll see a change here, and then you go to your web connector and finish the sync. So it folds into the standard sync processes that we already use for things like invoice syncs, PO syncs, invoice payments, that type of thing. So I'll go ahead and sync the deposit. I see that it's completed, and this will be immediate, just like other types of syncs that you already do. And so if I go to my QuickBooks Desktop and go to Company and make journal entries, I can find that as a journal entry, and here it is. I confirm the name of the account. I can see that it has debited and credited the amounts correctly, so everything was done automatically. The significance of this account name, this is basically just to illustrate that in this example, this was a new customer created in Mothernode that was not previously in this QuickBooks Desktop account. So that's important because just like with other processes, we know that if you submit an invoice, if you sync an invoice with a new customer that's not in QuickBooks, then QuickBooks will try to find it, and if it's not there, it will create the new customer account in QuickBooks. Same with vendors for POs where the vendor exists in Mothernode but not in QuickBooks. So the same type of process exists here. So this also illustrates that this company, this fake company, New Accounts RS Incorporated, has also been created in QuickBooks as part of the process. As always, if it's an existing account that's in Mothernode and QuickBooks, then QuickBooks will find it, as long as the spelling matches between Mothernode and QuickBooks, of course, and it will match it to the corresponding QuickBooks account. So it still does that as well. But it does handle the journal entry, whether it's a new company coming into QuickBooks or existing. And just one other thing to further illustrate that, when I go to my customer list, I can see the new company in my customer list, and so from this angle I can see the journal entry that has been created as well. So that further illustrates that everything was created correctly. Now, returning to Mothernode, the workflow as far as completing the processing of your quote and moving it into the order phase, none of that changes. We'll see that when we create the order, save the header, and I go into the invoicing tab, then everything flows into it as it normally does, so nothing has changed here. And again, as I noted earlier, you can do everything that I just showed you, within the quote in the order, as far as creating the deposit, taking the payment, and syncing the deposit. So you can sync the deposit whether it's in the quote or order. And then the rest of the processing falls into place as it always has. You would fulfill the order with respect to PO activity, work orders, production, shipping, all of that stays the same. None of that changes. And so as a result, what we'll do is fast track things and make this an invoice to show you what happens at that point. And so we'll go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to quickly move it into ready for invoice and create the invoice so I can show you the rest of the process. Here's the invoice. And now when I go into the invoice, I can immediately see that the deposit payment was deducted from the total of the invoice, shows an adjusted balance due, which is good. And then as always, under record payment, it shows the deposit that is now a payment, so none of that has changed as well. But on the sync side of things, I'm going to sync it just as I always have. I don't have to do anything special at this point, just by syncing the invoice. And because I've already synced the deposit earlier, then the system will know to not only send the invoice information over to QuickBooks, but it will also send the deposit information to QuickBooks so that the original journal entry that I showed you will be reversed automatically. The information in the lower right portion of the screen is important, because this note in green here tells me that the deposit was previously synced and will be applied in the normal invoice sync process. And as always, I can initiate the sync here, or I can go to the processes that you're familiar with to go to export to accounting in the invoice list. So none of that has changed as well. I always have the options to sync the invoice using multiple methods. In this case, since I'm here, I'm going to initiate the process and click on Send to QuickBooks. And then as always, this goes into a pending status. I'll go to my web connector to complete the sync. Now I see that it's completed. And when I refresh it here, just to confirm, go back to record payment. All right, and I can see that it was successfully synced, and now this information has a green background, which tells me that the related deposit information has synced as well. And when I return to QuickBooks, I can immediately see, I was on this screen anyways for the customer. It shows me the journal entry reversal, so that was automatic. And then of course the invoice that was synced over, and I can open it up to confirm that the payment that was originally a deposit is now applied as a payment in QuickBooks. So it handled all of those steps automatically with that final invoice sync. And then of course, if needed, I can always go back to the journal entry and confirm. I can see the original journal entry, and then I can see the automatic reversal of the journal entry as well. Although we just saw it within the customer list as well, but just to show you that from a different angle. And one final thing that's worth noting as far as this new workflow, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot added to it. It's very straightforward, very non-invasive. But one thing that we do want to note is that because it's bound to happen, the question will arise, well, what do I do if we forgot, or if for whatever reason the deposit was not synced over to QuickBooks. So in this example, as you can see, I've received a deposit, but for whatever reason, whether I forget or otherwise, I do not sync it to QuickBooks. Well, first of all, in Mothernode, it doesn't affect the internal Mothernode workflow. You can still work through it as you normally would, quote to order, process the order, make the invoice, and in Mothernode, the deposit payment will still carry to the invoice. So none of that changes, but there is something to note with respect to the fact that if you haven't, for whatever reason, synced the deposit over to QuickBooks, then there is a piece of this that you should be aware of. So what I'm going to do is not sync the deposit in this example, and then I'm simply going to move forward. And since this is already in order, I'm going to make it an invoice. So the deposit is there, the payment is there, but I never sync the deposit. So that's the scenario. So what I'm going to do is make it an invoice. All right, here's the new invoice. I'll go to record payment. The payment's there, it's been applied to the Mothernode invoice, but it was never synced to QuickBooks, so it never hit the journal entry in QuickBooks. Notice that the message in the lower right, in addition to your standard send to QuickBooks option, is in red. It clearly states that the deposit was not sent to QuickBooks. So there's a warning or information message regarding that, and then this shows up in yellow as well, saying, hey, this deposit is not set up to be applied to QuickBooks. So that is part of the new workflow, all to let you know that, hey, this was never done, and you still have the option to go back, and it is advised from a best practice standpoint to go back and sync that deposit so you can come back here and fall into the normal workflow from that point forward. So if I were to do that, and all I have to do in this case is go back to the order, it's going to be very simple, and I can still go back and click Send Deposit to QuickBooks, and then go to my web connector and finish the sync. And I can once again verify that by refreshing the tab. I can see that it on this end, it shows that it's synced to QuickBooks. And as you can see, it hits the journal entry in QuickBooks. So it wasn't a problem to go back. If for whatever reason I never synced it in the first place, I can go back to the quote or the order and then sync it, and then go back into the invoice and do my normal sync. So now when I flip back to the invoice, I can now see that the deposit is now eligible to be applied in QuickBooks, and everything appears normal at this point. And so with that, I can simply do my normal sync from here or from the invoice list, and then finish the sync as always. I see it's complete. Always like to refresh and double check here, and I can see that that invoice was synced and the deposit was applied in QuickBooks as well. And finally, I can see the new invoice that has been synced to QuickBooks, and I see the original journal entry and the reversal, so everything fell into place nicely. And that's it for the new process syncing deposits to QuickBooks Desktop. Please let us know if you have any questions.